Can you? Yeah. Hello and welcome to this very special show on the wrestlers' protest. Now that it has been called off, joining us this morning, Shubhan Chakravarti and Athreya Mukhopadhyay. Both of them were tracking the developments in Delhi. You have seen them yesterday on our show with all the latest. Shubhan has been camping there literally at Jantar Mantar. And of course, a very special guest joining us permanently from 1st February. Delighted to have G. Rajaraman with me on the show. You've seen him on Red Sports multiple times on the doping issue along with KP Mohan. But today, very pleased to announce that we'll have Rajaraman with us permanently from 1st of February, advising us, consulting us on multiple matters, and of course, doing stuff together. Shubhan, I would suggest you take it over
Yes,
because you and Athreya were there, and then all of us
yes,
can contribute.
yes. Before we get into the debate and the show, just a quick announcement that the Sports Ministry jumped into action late night, and they have formed an oversight committee that will take care of the Wrestling Federation of India. Until then, and it will take care. It will take care of the allegations of made by the prominent sportsperson of sexual misconduct, financial irregularities, and administrative lapses, and it will also undertake the day-to-day administration of the WFI. And till the time the inquiry gets over, WFI chief Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh has decided to step aside. I'll straight go to Rajaraman sir. Sir, this oversight committee. What's your take on this? 4 weeks they have said they will take 4 weeks time and solve this entire issue. What does this mean for the WFI?
I think it's a very fair decision in the end. The ministry has been proactive. We must say that. But it's probably
Right,
the first time that an overarching committee has been appointed by the ministry. Typically,
right,
these committees have been appointed by the courts, but now
right,
we see the ministry play a proactive role. It's going to be interesting to see the outcome. I don't think there's going to be a great resolution because, as it is, the wrestlers are backed off. Their big demand
right,
was the dissolution of WFI and the dissolution of all the state associations. That's not going to
right.
happen very clearly. That's not going to happen. So they found a via media. So kudos to the sports ministry for having found that middle path and coming up with this plan of having a committee that's going to investigate the allegations of sexual misconduct.
Absolutely. Boriana, I'll come to you. Rajaraman sir said that they will investigate. That's a very interesting word. That's a very important word. Yesterday also we saw in that IOA statement that they clearly mentioned that they will not go by the media trial that has been happening in the last 3 4 days. So how important is it? How important is it to give to listen to both sides of the story and not just go by the hype and whatever the trend is around the wrestlers and the soft side of their take.
No, it's absolutely important. You're labeling an allegation. If you're labeling
Right.
an allegation, you need to have it backed up by proof. And in case of a sexual harassment charge, there has to be a police complaint or a complaint to some authority or some body, right? So,
Right.
but at the same time, these are serious allegations coming from
Right.
the top wrestlers of the country, financial irregularity. So you've got to investigate, the issue of money that Bajrang raised with Tata Motors, the issues
Right.
that Vinesh have been raising. But media trial cannot be the decision maker. I mean, you can shout from a television channel saying resign, resign. Now you know nothing. There are television anchors at 9 p.m. who shout from their rooftop saying resign, resign, who have no understanding of the ground situation. And that is the truth.
Right.
So in that case, I mean, there are now two committees. One is an IOA committee and one is a sports ministry committee, which is also
Right.
interesting to me. Now, if the committees come to diverse findings, then what? Will they come to diverse findings? Is there a necessity for two committees? And more importantly, and I would like Athreya and Rajaraman and you also to comment on this, now the wrestlers need to go back to what they need to do, which is the national
Right.
camp. The sport has to be protected. Ultimately, what we have been seeing, I mean, India needs its wrestlers back on the mat, not in Jantar Mantar. Is this finally the end of it? Because look, as Rajaraman said, WFI has not been dissolved. The president
Right.
has stepped aside. He has not resigned. State
Right.
associations have not been dissolved. So are the wrestlers happy? They've called off the protest. But is this the end of it? I don't know. So next 4 weeks will be interesting.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, please.
we have to wait. We have to wait and watch for a while to see how exactly things unfold. But as Rajaraman was saying, this is unprecedented. That previously committees to look into matters were formed by the court, not by the ministry. So we have, this is a precedent. Whether a dangerous precedent or not, we don't know. And as Rajaraman was saying, that it's impossible to dissolve the federation and all the state units just like that. That cannot happen. It goes against the Olympic Charter and all that. And they follow a constitution, right? They follow a constitution, elect their president. So an elected president cannot be sacked just like that, unless he, of course, he steps aside or steps down.
Absolutely right.
And it's unfortunate that this has happened in a sports like wrestling, which has been India's most productive Olympic sport. The last 4 editions of Olympic, we have got 6 medals from wrestling. And in all, India has probably 16 or 17 individual medals from Olympics. 7 of them are from wrestling. So it's very unfortunate that this is happening in a sport like this, where Indians were doing better and better. Last year we had 4 or 5 medal contenders. Eventually 2 of them got medals, but we had 4 or 5 contenders. World Championships, we get 3 to 5 medals every year over the last 3-4 editions.
Right.
So hopefully things will be back on track. Hopefully wrestlers will be back on track. And wrestling will be back on track.
Right. Right. Rajaraman sir, I mean, the wrestling camps, the national camps, they used to take place in Lucknow. And Vinesh clearly mentioned that they are not happy with the camps that were taking place near the house of Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh. Now that the WFI president is not in charge, he has stepped aside. Will they go back to Lucknow? That's the main question. Will they be happy to go back to Lucknow and continue their preparations, as Boriana said? Will it happen, or will they set up another place to train?
Shubhan, I think it's important for the Sports Authority of India to assert itself here. The national camps have been taking place in the Sports Authority of India campus in Lucknow, and they need to ensure safety of the athletes. They can say that we will not have the coaches that you are questioning. We will bring in foreign coaches. I think it's important in the Asian Games here. Unfortunately, Shubhan, everyone is talking about Paris Olympic. They're forgetting that there's an Asian Games and a World Championship this year.
And Olympic qualification, yes.
No, the Asian Games are, to me, the most important event this year. India needs to perform well. For that, you need to train very hard. Back in 2008, I saw Sushil Kumar, an innocent Sushil Kumar, train within 3 days of coming back from winning his bronze medal in Beijing. Now, I asked him, why was he in such a hurry to train? Everybody else celebrate. They go around the country collecting money. Now, this guy was practicing at the Chhatrashal Stadium. So I asked him, what is it that made him train so hard within days of returning from getting an Olympic medal? He said, sir, अगर एक दिन का training छूटता है तो एक महीना पीछे हो जाता हूँ. I am set back by a month if I don't train. Now, these wrestlers are Olympic medalists, Asian Games medalists, Commonwealth Games medalists. They need to understand that their bodies will undergo transformation if they don't train. Vinesh is on record as saying that they will bring Matt to Jantar Mantar and train from today. She needs to go back. It's very important that athletes go back to training camp. And it has to be in Lucknow for the Sports Authority of India to assert itself and say that training will not shift from here. We might change the coaches, we might change the support staff, but training will happen in the Thai campus in Lucknow.
Right. But Boriana, another important point that the allegations were not only against the WFI president, but some of the national coaches, if I have to quote Vinesh there, some of the national coaches. So you have to overhaul the entire coaching setup. Is it very easy to do because of the training schedule, training regimes? Coaches know how the athletes train. They have been with them for years, for months. So if you bring some new national coaches, is it an easy transition?
No, it can't be an easy transition. But having said that, if there are examples of misconduct and mismanagement, and if the allegations prove to be true, which is now upon the committees to investigate, then yes. I mean, if you think of the Larry Nassar case, right? For example, the whole of the world got turned upside down, right? But these are serious allegations, and I'm continuously saying, but is there proof? They will have to be proved for somebody to be sacked. In this case, resignation was demanded of the president and the national coaches. So far, we haven't seen resignations. All we have seen is a step aside for 4 weeks. And there is a very important mention in that IOA letter. We will not go by media trial. There is also an important declaration by the sports ministry, day-to-day charges. So if there is an Olympic Committee meeting or an International Wrestling Federation meeting, who will represent India? Is that a day-to-day work? Or will Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh still represent India? He's still the president, for God's sake. He's still the president. So, these are important considerations. I think what the ministry has successfully done is it has tried to find a middle path and close this. Because this is against the ethic of sport and against India's interest. You need your best athletes, and these are your most decorated athletes, as Rajaraman and Athrev both said, on the mat, in camps, fighting for India, training for India. Let the committee figure out what happens to Brij Bhushan Sharan. If there is misconduct, let him go. But the country cannot suffer. We will not fight. Let the association be dissolved. These are mad talks. The association dissolves means what? India will fight under what flag? If there is no association, the IOC will de-recognize you. You have to think about these things as Olympic medalists. No one can sack, as Atre was. He's an elected president, for God's sake. Unless the courts come in. In this case, he's been asked to step aside by the ministry. So there are important things. I thought emotion was talking in Jantar Mantar. Having said that, emotion also, there were serious allegations made. Let them be investigated. Let lawyers be there as part of the IOA committee. PT Usha is the head. She's one of the most decorated athletes. I would have wanted, point number one, the IOA to step in earlier. And I'm saying it openly. I would have wanted PT Usha to go to Jantar Mantar, call them to the IOA office, not Jantar Mantar, and say, hello, sit down here. You are our athletes, our people. Sit down here. Let's address your issues. Not 2 days later. Not 2 days later. So, at least the ministry finally has taken a stand whereby we will see our athletes back, hopefully, where they belong.
Absolutely. Atroda, you were there, and yes, please.
I think it's a very clever, it's been very well handled by the ministry, because it mentions the president will not be part of day-to-day activities. Well, as far as I know, a national sports federation president does not take part in day-to-day activities.
Correct.
These are looked after by his subordinates. I mean, the secretary, assistant secretary, and others. President doesn't really get into the picture on as far as day-to-day activities are concerned. That way, IOA has done. The ministry has done well, because it was looking as if it's going to be status quo from both sides. They have struck, as Boria was saying, they have found the middle path, which was very
Tell me
important at this juncture.
This is a question for you and Raja. Suppose, whatever happens, we don't know. But can Bajrang, Vinesh, Sakshi, and the rest of them coexist with Brij Bhushan Sharan going forward? Do you see any kind of reconciliation? Because they demanded the sacking of the whole WFI, which we are not seeing clearly. Do you, for example, believe a reconciliation is possible? Atre, Raja, Shubha, and all of you. Atre, you go first.
See, in the beginning, I thought that this cannot happen, because as far as reconciliation is concerned, it cannot happen, because you have leveled charges of sexual harassment, not just bad ways of administration. So either they have to prove their charges, or they will have to be suspended. And a president cannot continue. It's either the president or them, and they cannot coexist.
Right.
Raja?
I completely agree. I mean,
you cannot, as far as dissolving the WFI is concerned, it cannot happen. You cannot. How can you dissolve a body? I mean, what is the? I mean, if there is not a federation, as Boria was saying, it will IOC will disaffiliate Indian wrestling, and I don't see a reconciliation here.
Okay, Raja, what are your thoughts on this one?
See, typically, Boria, athletes and administrators can coexist peacefully even after they have had bitter fights. I remember Adil Sumariwala leading a protest in 1982, just ahead of the Asian Games. There was a threat of the Indian athlete boycotting the Asian Games. So Bhuta Singh who was then the sports minister, had to fly into Patiala and then placate a lot of athletes. I'm going back to 1982. Adil and company came back, competed. India won a lot of medals in the 1982 Asian Games. So they can exist peacefully. But as Atre pointed out, there is a sexual molestation, sexual harassment charge. And therefore, peaceful coexistence becomes very difficult at this stage. So it's going to be an either-or situation with Vinesh specifically surviving the whole thing, or the president surviving the whole thing. But in any case, Boria, Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh's term has ended,
Yeah.
is close to ending. So that question is now only a hypothetical question, because he's not going to be around in the federation per se. His cloud might be hanging over the federation over a number of years. It's not going to be easy for that to go away, but he might himself not be involved. So peaceful coexistence eminently possible, I think now.
Shubhan?
But I have another question for all of you. That, like, this question has been going through my mind for the last 3 4 days. Whenever I went to Jantar Mantar, what if they fail to not provide any? What if they fail to provide any sort of evidence of this sexual allegation? Then what happens? That is my question, and I'm pretty sure many people who are following this development would have this question. What if they fail to provide any evidence? What
Ajay,
happens
you
then?
go first.
Yes, thank you. Without evidence, the whole case falls flat, and the athletes lose face, the wrestlers lose face. But I'm sure, Shubhayan, that they have thought this through. They
Right.
wouldn't be making such a big allegation without having something up their sleeve. It could
Hmm.
be something as simple as the president leaving the door of his room open in front of another woman athlete, as we heard one allegation come up. We don't
Right.
know what details they have got, but they must have something up their sleeve. Otherwise, they would not be making such a massive allegation against the president of the Wrestling Federation of India. But ideally, they should have been complaining about it either to the sports minister before, or to the Sports Authority of India. If they didn't want to go to the cops, if they didn't want to go to the National Commission for Women, they should have. There are any number of integrity initiatives around. The CBI has got a sports integrity unit. They could have
Right.
complained to that, and they respect anonymity. They respect the secrecy that is needed here. They had many avenues open, but we need to wait and watch if they've got any evidence, if they've got anything more conclusive than just allegation at this point in time.
See, Shubhan, my
Right.
point is
Uh-huh.
when you are talking about as successful and as decorated an athlete as Vinesh, I wouldn't want to doubt her as well, right?
Right.
Firstly,
Right.
this is an all-male panel here, so we have to put that on record, and we are debating
Right.
this. Having said that, I don't think anyone will come out in the open and say something as serious as sexual misconduct without any evidence, like Raja says. Having
Right.
said that, was it the best handled? No. It should have been handled in a different way, whether to cops, whether to the National Council of Women, whether to the ministry, whether to, as he says, the CBI unit. Because
Right.
what now is there's going to be a lot of pressure on Vinesh. To say
Right.
25 girls will come forward, to say
Uh-huh.
20 girls will come forward. Having said that, and I have known Vinesh for a long time, I have no way to doubt her integrity, especially when she's speaking on a matter like this. So it's going to be very challenging and interesting in the next 4 weeks as to what transpires and what constitutes evidence. When we
Right.
say evidence, it will be upon the committee to understand and adjudicate what constitutes evidence in this case. But if you then, penalize Brij Bhushan Sharan, you will have to have a solid case, because otherwise, if you go to court and Brij Bhushan Sharan is powerful, all of us know BJP MP, 6-time Uttar Pradesh elections coming, add all of that into the mix, and this is one of the most complicated situations possible.
Is there? You just mentioned Uttar Pradesh election, and even Brij Bhushan Singh in an interview to BBC did say that Deepinder Hooda is there behind that. So, is there a political alignment there as well? A political correction? Uh, is there a possibility? I'm just asking.
Atra?
At this stage, it's unwise to rule out any possibility. And if you see all the wrestlers, I mean, it's not a protest by wrestlers in general. It's a protest. The protest was staged primarily by wrestlers from Haryana.
Right.
I mean, we didn't see wrestlers from other states utter a word about this.
Hmm.
So at this stage, it's difficult to rule out any possibility. And as we were saying that sexual harassment charges and all that allegations, they're difficult to establish, difficult to prove. As Boria was saying, what is
Mhm.
evidence? At this stage, evidence is probably the I mean, more athletes coming out and speaking up. It's basically a matter of testimony. In this case, probably evidence would be testimony. And but coming back to our question, at this stage, it's nothing can be ruled out. It's not just it's not merely a sports incident anymore.
Right.
There are a lot of other
Raja Atru alludes to a Haryana versus UP fight. Is this a Haryana versus UP fight in some senses?
As Atrio pointed out, nothing can be ruled out. We'll wait for 4 weeks for the whole thing to pan out. We'll see what the two committees come up with. It's going to be interesting, whether it is political, whether it is personal, whether it's vendetta, whether it is emotion boiling over after so many years. We will have to wait and watch. My own interest, Boria and Shubhayan and Atrio, is in seeing whether the athletes now accept the selection criteria that have been laid down. Will they go back? Will the stars go back to national camps that they've been saying that these are pathetic? They're not any good at all, whether the support staff or the coaching staff or the conditions. And then they're saying this is nothing against the government, nothing against the ministry. It's going to be interesting to see whether they go back to camp, whether they accept the conditions laid down by the Wrestling Federation of India, and then go back to trials. See, one of the biggest things that the president was making was about how some of these wrestlers seem to be entitled and don't want to take part in the routine competitions. So it's going to be interesting now to see whether the overarching committee that's been appointed by the ministry will get them back in the camp, will get them to take part in trials, or whether, as Vinesh said quite brazenly, I must say, she can go straight to the Olympics and compete there.
Right. Right. So that's also a major question there, Boriada, because two contrasting statements I heard the last couple of days. One made by Vinesh Fogart, as Rajaraman sir said, that we'll straight go to हम लोग सीधा Olympics जाएंगे, कोई national नहीं खेलेगा, हम लोग तैयार है जाने के लिए. Number two, made by बजरंग पुनिया, हम लोग यहाँ पे खड़े हैं, सारे Olympic champion है, Commonwealth champion है, और हम लोग national जीत के ही हम लोग उस पायदान पर गए हैं. So these are two contrasting statements, and it remains to be seen whether they go to the nationals and take part in trials. But another question I wanted to ask to Boriada, that the kind of trials they take place, they conduct, these are very like rigid. I mean, 10 days after Commonwealth Games, there's a trial. 10 games after major tournament, there are trials. And in India, we know that felicitation ceremonies take place for 1 week, 10 days. So is it harsh on the athletes as well? Do we need to reschedule the entire trial system as well?
Shubhan, I don't think any country in the world does as many felicitations as us in India. For 1 month, felicitations going on for a Commonwealth Games medal is unheard of, according to me. So if trials are scheduled, that's your job, number one. Number two, whoever you are, and I've also heard that Bajrang statement and Vinesh statement, whoever you are, and as I said, Vinesh is a personal favorite of mine in terms of an athlete, but whoever you are, you have to give a trial. Because there is an Antim Fangal who is coming up, for example. I mean, how do you say that, there is another athlete who is there in the wings, but he or she is not good enough? You've got to be the best in the country to go and represent the country at the Olympic level. It is as simple. That is why the quota belongs to the country, not to the athlete. That is why this rule. If you see every other country, the quota belongs to the country, not the athlete. So give a trial, win and go. If you are the best, you win. That's when Bajrang said, हम लोग trial देके जाएंगे, खत्म काम. नेशनल कैंप में आइए, आपसे बेटर रेसलर है नहीं इंडिया में, आप जीत के दिखाइए और आप चले जाइए, because then we will know that our best person has gone to the Olympic Games. Simple. As far as an association, look, whether you like it or not, today when the BCCI selects a coach, no Virat Kohli, no Rohit Sharma has an entitlement to go and say, hello, I will not play under this coach. You have to. It is the prerogative of the federation or the association. And there cannot be 40 national coaches or 40 personal coaches and 40 masseurs for 40 people in a camp. Not possible. So there are certain rules and regulations that have to be followed by every athlete, however good you are.
Right.
Shubhayan,
Yes, please, sir.
Want to add, you look at a sport like shooting, right? Valarivan, who is one of the world's best shooters, has to shoot in every trial that the National Rifle Association of India has got. And they've got a number of trials through the year. Right. So they have trials for every 2 World Cup competitions, for example. So you have to be the best. You have to show your fitness and your form to be able to go and compete in shooting for the country. Similarly, other federations have got trials. Now, if the number of medals you've got internationally is the only criterion, then you don't need selections. You don't need selectors. Why have national championships? So
Right.
at some point of time, you have to compete with your uh, fellow wrestlers to be able
Uh-huh.
to show that you're the best in the country. You could be the best in the world, but what if there is somebody else who's coming along who can beat you in a trial in the country, who can beat you in a national championship in the country, and then go on to represent the country? You've also
Mm.
beaten somebody else to get there. Uh, in Bajrang's case, he had to wait for Yogeshwar Dutt to vacate his place. Now you
Right.
can't be waiting. Bajrang knows more than anybody else that you can't be
Mhm.
waiting forever. So there are young athletes, there are young wrestlers who also have aspirations. Respect them. Until you respect your fellow competitors, then it becomes difficult for anybody to say that you are a true champion in all senses of the term. I think they need to respect fellow competitors. They need to go back to the camp. They need to go back to attend the trials and compete in whatever national event that the federation has got. That to me is a very important point from here. We want to see.
Uh-huh.
I want to see what the committee is going to do when it comes to day-to-day affairs. How soon it will get the wrestlers back in the camp and start training, because this is the Asian Games here, this is the World Championship here, and it's very important that we get the focus back on sport rather than worry about administration and what is likely to happen.
100%, 100%. That's a very well made point. To wrap up the show, my question to all of you: where do you see this heading? Two committees, 4 weeks time. Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh is not in charge of day-to-day functioning. If I have to quote the statement, where do you see this going?
Atra?
Well, I would like to see that the wrestlers go back to training and start and get Jantar Mantar out of the system.
Uh,
And as far as your question is concerned, it's very difficult to come up with a direct answer at this point in time, because as
right,
we all discussed, that it's difficult to uh, prove these kind of allegations, and whether there will be sufficient evidence, whether the evidence will be acceptable, whether the committee will recommend harsh steps against the federation president. These are we have to see. I mean, there is no point in speculating. I mean, it's just started, and we have to wait and watch. And as Radharaman was saying, Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh's tenure is coming to an end. So that probably be an answer in itself to the questions we are asking. That's
I
right,
all.
would say,
right,
Shubhan, I would say that it is. I totally agree with Atre when he says it's difficult to speculate. Suppose Brij Bhushan is not found
right,
guilty, is there coexistence possible? Suppose he is found guilty,
right.
then we have an answer. Now, if he's not
Uh-huh.
found guilty of all the charges, maybe some, does he have to vacate? I mean, these are all open-ended questions at this point in time, but the sport cannot suffer. Go back and
Right,
train. I mean, irrespective of Brij Bhushan found guilty, the question of national camps and trials will remain. Are you going to
Right.
go back? Are you going to go back today and start training and competing with your fellow athletes and performing for India? This is something that the wrestlers will have to do, because that's the way forward for the sport. So, my plea is go back where you belong. Let the committee and the ministry, and we have seen proactiveness, we have seen IOA step in, we have seen PT Usha and her team step in, we have seen all of that. Leave it to them now. Get it out of your system. Go train. Wait for the committee's report, because there is no reason to doubt that the ministry and the IOA will not be objective and neutral. They will be. They will be, because there is a Mary Com, there is a PT Usha. There is no reason for these people not to be,
right.
not to be neutral, right? So believe in them, go and train, and wait for the outcome.
Rajaraman sir, parting comments.
I would like to believe good will emerge out of all this. I
Right.
think we are in for a good time as far as wrestling is concerned. I hope that the last few days have not nosedived wrestling as far as the Asian Games chances are concerned, as far as the World Championship chances are concerned. I believe that good is round the corner. I believe
Yeah, go on.
I believe there's going to be a very interesting time ahead of us. What the committee does in the next 4 weeks, what kind of system they employ to complete the investigation, whether they give both sides equal opportunity to cross-examine one another, all that will become important. I believe good will emerge out of this, and hopefully it will set a precedent for all other federations in the future.
Hopefully good will come out of this entire episode. Obviously not the best of last 3 days for Indian wrestling, but hopefully these two committees will ensure that the right thing has the justice prevails ultimately in this wrestling scenario. Thank you everyone for joining. Rajaraman sir, Buryada, Afroda,
Thank
and we'll continue to track this story as well. There's badminton India Open semi-final starting today. Afroda and I will be there as well. Cricket is there. Hockey World Cup is there. So plenty of action. No stoppage there. We'll continue to cover everything. Don't forget to subscribe to Rev Sports and download our app from Google Play Store as well. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye. Bye.
Yeah.
अरे शुभान निकल लिया
हाँ,